Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
Hey, if you wanted to ask me any questions about Knowledge for Men or any challenges you currently have and want me to help you break through, then check out my live weekly talks at kfmlive.com, where I share my biggest lessons learned about being the most powerful version of yourself and interact with the Knowledge for Men community live. To attend the next live event, go to kfmlive.com. Again, that's kfmlive.com. Hope to see you there and have a conversation with you. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Dale Partridge, the founder of Startup Camp. I'm recently scrolling through Facebook and I see this viral post that Dale wrote about being a strong man and about being a strong father and husband here, and was intrigued to get Dale on the show. So Dale, happy to have you here.
Hey, man, super stoked to be with you. All
right, and before we dive into this whole explosion that you just made on the internet, let's start off with a favorite success quote or some sort of saying that you've lived by that's helped you on your journey.
Yeah, probably go with never get too busy making a living that you forget to make a life, or you can't be great at your job if your job is all you do. So I kind of lean on those two quotes and the idea that I see so many men really struggle with finding their identity in just their jobs. And for me as an entrepreneur, I really made the decision that I don't want to start my own business so that I can work more. I want to figure out how I can actually make more money with less time. And so I can work less, so I can, spend more time with the people I love, doing the things that I like. So this idea of just getting stuck, focusing on my vision and my dreams and my selfish desires has really changed my perspective, so that I go, hey, I just don't want to get too busy making that living. And I don't want to forget, my wife and my kids in the dust. And I really want to have that wholesome balance, what I call having it all.
Yeah, I like that. I really do. And I think it's a message that needs to be shared more. I think often, if you just go on Instagram or any social media or a lot of blog posts, talk a lot about how, you got to put in, of course, the work up front, but it's all about the work is the vibe that I'm feeling with the internet.
Right now, you have tons of guys that are super stoked about, I actually saw this on Instagram. It says married, checkbox, nothing there. Single, checkbox, nothing there. Building my empire, check, right? It's ridiculous, right? It's like, so
I think I've seen that. Yeah.
It's like building my empire. It's like, okay, you're so focused on you that you're going to pass up the opportunity to find the woman of your dreams, to start building a life. Because again, I don't want to be 40, wealthy, known, and alone. That would suck, right? So I want to make sure that I'm not so one-sided in my success. Like if I was single, sure, I would be a 10, 15, $20 million a year person right now, because I'd have all the time in the world. I'm not impressed with these people that are like single and crushing it and build this incredible business. Great. Like I could have done that. Like a lot of guys could do that when you have nothing to do besides take care of yourself. But these people that have, these dads of 5 kids or 7 kids and a marriage for 20 years and employees that love them, and on top of all this incredible success at home, they're also crushing it at a $10 million company they built. That's impressive. That's a different level of success, and that's kind of what I'm going for.
Yeah, yeah. And how does this relate with where you are now in, what's your age? You're in your 30s?
I just turned 31 yesterday.
Okay, so early 30s. And then does this resonate with what you were feeling when you were younger? Like with what you just said, would you be like, what the hell, Dale, if you're in your 20s?
Yeah, I'm a Christian guy, so I became a Christian when I was about 21.
Okay.
And that kind of started changing my perspective on just what I was living for, what I was doing. And I was the worst of the worst, man. And so...
What happened there? You came into Christianity, like what was it for you?
For me, my testimony was just that I was an entrepreneur. I was trying to, do a ton of work and had anxiety and And one night I couldn't sleep, and then I couldn't sleep the next night, and I was up for like, I don't know, 50 something hours. And I just like got on my face and I was just like, Lord, if you are out there, I will serve you if you just give me some sleep right now. And I cracked. I like crying and I went back home and passed out for like 16 hours and woke up the next morning and literally just been like serving God ever since. And it's changed my life. And I mean, that might have made something very complex seem very small, but there's a lot of complex emotions in that experience, but it changed me. I'm a night and day kind of guy. I went from like one extreme to the other. I was a pretty bad person in my experience. And so now I'm definitely just chasing after integrity. I'm chasing after building a great life, a strong business. I'm a total capitalist on one side too. So I love the idea of capitalism when it's done healthy. And I just want to make sure that I'm not sitting back when I'm 60 years old and regret my life. And I think this whole idea of no regrets is BS. Like there's millions of people that have regrets in their life, and I don't want to be one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And was that the tipping point to what you just wrote now about you don't want to be wealthy, known, and alone? And no, that goes well.
That wasn't my tipping point yet. It was, okay. We're on a pilgrimage, right? As we kind of at least come to know the Lord. I mean, it's one of these things where it's a pilgrimage. So it took me a lot of years and incredibly difficult conversations, awkward conversations, humiliating moments, iron sharpening iron, just people telling me the raw truth that kind of created me to where I am. But a couple of years ago, I was paying about $1,000 a month to be in a mastermind group with some incredible people. And this group of guys came around me and I mean, just ripped me into shreds in terms of just emotionally took me down, helped me heal. And I was again.
How did they rip you apart?
I mean, just telling me the truth, putting a mirror in front of your face, and like, a good friend will tell you when you have a booger on your face,
Right.
And so they just told me, man, straight up, because no one else would. I had 50 employees at Sevenly. I was on top of the world, the cover of business magazines. Everybody had an interest in making sure that I was happy because, they don't want to piss the boss off, right? So no one was telling me the truth. And these guys were like, dude, you hurt people. You're a hard personality to be around. Like, you lie. You're a total liar. And I just got super convicted and super embarrassed. And it was, again, all this kind of this intentional personal growth that I became addicted. I learned quickly that the faster I could get corrected, no matter how painful it was, the faster I could find my way to success. And so I just totally, if anybody wants to correct me, I'm in. Just tell me. Now, am I going to take it from everybody? No, but I'm going to take it from people that I give it permission to give me that correction. And I take it from people who are safe. And so I kind of build those boundaries, and I'm constantly looking for ways to improve.
Yeah. What did you mean by take it from people where it's safe? Like vulnerability, what's happening there?
People that have my best interest in mind. Safe people, meaning that someone that I trust, that I have history with, not just some, person on the internet that says, I think you're an idiot, Dale, and I think that you should, like on this post right here that I did on Facebook, you guys can check it out on my fan page. And most of the comments, right? So there's 57,000 likes. So we obviously know that 57,000 people agree with me here, right? Now there's, in the 45,000 shares, there's probably 3,000 comments, and about 2,000 of them are calling me I'm a prick and I'm a horrible person and I'm an idiot and I'm stupid and all these other things, right? And so, you don't take information off the internet. You take it from people who know you and they know your heart and you have history with them and they are safe. And secondly, even better is if people that you've given permission to say, hey, dude, I need the accountability. I don't need the compliments. I need the accountability. And please help me see what I can't see. Reveal those blind spots. Show me those shortcuts. And the more people you have doing that in your life, and I typically have two to four people that are constantly doing that in my life at any given moment, the faster we are to find what we're going to be doing for the planet, for the people we love.
Yeah. I'm getting that your environment plays a big role in your self-development.
Absolutely. Yeah. My community of people, they're great friends and they're also peers in many spots, but also, a lot older than me in other areas. So I have some guys that are in their 50s and I have some guys that are also in their 30s and some guys that are even a little bit younger than me that I really listen to. And so having that lifestyle and that environment set up for success is really important, because people that are floundering and just not really having those things set up, they typically just, it's a slow growth movement.
on this path, and you even talked about it too, in like you post things on Facebook, and people call you, all kinds of names and things. So on this journey of you growing professionally in your business, in your career, and personally, what has it been like to handle those opinions of other people, and also growing past some of your counterparts and some of your peers and friends?
Yeah, I mean, it's lonely at the top, right? So that's one thing that I always just remind people, is that it's lonely at the top. And if no one's saying anything about what you're talking about, I mean, you're typically not, you're not making a big enough splash, right? So I actually wrote an article not long ago. The title's called "How I Overcome Haters, Death Threats, and the Offended Internet." Facebook's so brutal. Like, you just got to realize that these people would never say this to you to your face, right? And they're just brutal. Adult bullies are just hard people, right? And so I kind of have a few rules on how to deal with those people. One thing is your silence is more powerful than their noise. And so the idea is that I don't give them anything. So if they call me any name on the planet, I literally don't reply to them. I don't even look at them. I don't even read the comments. So like that's the best part about it, is that you just give them silence. Silence is what they deserve. Because if you give these people anything, they're going to take everything from you. They're going to just rip you to shreds.
It's like
so I don't give
fuel
them
on
anything.
the fire.
Oh yeah, I don't give them anything. And so yeah, and another thing I live by is that we can't control what happens to us, but we can control what happens in us. And so that's kind of a really important thought, is that we don't get to control all the things that happen to us in our world, but those emotions that we get to have in those things, it takes rhinoceros skin to lead in today's internet world. You need to be willing to say, I'm going to stand up for something. I'm not going to compromise my moral code, and I'm going to be strong, and I'm going to say my beliefs, and people are going to hate me before it. And when they hate you for it, it's okay, because there's also the other side of that war that love you for it. People are looking for a voice. And that's what's happening. I mean, we've seen that with Donald Trump, right? We're seeing that with all types of leaders today, that people just go, I just want a voice that I can follow to voice all the things that I'm afraid to say. So yeah, you learn that as a leader, and it is a tough space to be in, but I guess that's the price of the position.
It is. Yeah, you got to be willing to accept that if you're going to go into this, right?
Right.
And you started off with like, it's lonely at the top. It makes me wonder why, even if it's lonely at the top, do I even want to be there? Do I want to get there if it's lonely?
Yeah, it's an important decision to make early on, because it's something that you really got to be motivated for something. And for me, my whole goal is to help men become men, women become women, and children to become very relevant. Okay. And so the idea is that I think that we are in a world right now where men are going to be boys, women will be men, and children are irrelevant. And that's a really it's the total opposite of where I'm going, right? And we see this all the time, because men aren't leading. We're not stepping into our roles. We're being disrespectful. We're being hurtful. We're being childish and immature. And when that happens, who has to step up and fill up the shoes? The women do. And not to say that they can't anyways, but I'm just saying is that what we have is that we put unnecessary stress on our wives and in the women of our lives, sometimes because they don't necessarily want to take on those roles, and they are, because we're not stepping up. And, so we're seeing a lot of that. Now, I'm not confusing this with the feminist movement. I'm just saying is that there's some times definitely where women have to step into roles that they shouldn't have to, because men are failing. And so I'm trying to make sure that men can do that, and women can sit back and be comfortable in the position that they'd like to be in. And the fact that children, in my opinion, are the fastest way to maturity. I'm a dad of 2. I would love to have more. We're hoping that we can have a big family, maybe even 8, maybe 10, who knows? And I'll tell you what, man, I haven't met a dad that's had lots of children that I don't like, and never met a large family that I don't like. And there's something about that healthy, large family that's magical. And there's something about children that really make you grow up, and they really make you understand perspective and love and compassion and patience and these things that you just don't get. And so for me, like, I look at men that are 31, 32, 33, 38, and they don't have kids yet, and they complain about not everybody needs to have kids and blah, blah, blah. You don't even know what you're talking. I'm like, dude, I've been single. You haven't had a kid, like I know both sides. You only know one side. I'm telling you guys that you don't have kids. Kids are the best thing that'll ever happen to your life. They're cheaper, easier, and better than everybody makes them out to be. And so just in my experience, just fixing our thinking, because I believe if you think wrong, you're never going to live strong. And so if we focus on making sure that we think correctly, we're going to be able to create that life that we really want.
You talked about ways that men are failing. This is a big topic. Like, can we go deeper into this?
Yeah, I mean, one of the quotes that I put on Facebook in this kind of viral post is that we've become so courageous in business and battle, but we're afraid to be fathers. I talk about like we're addicted to video games and guy night, and those things have become more important than T-ball and date night, right? And so we're focusing on the wrong things. Remember, we're at default, we're selfish, okay? That's just the fact of the matter. We want to take care of ourselves. That's put inside of our brains, right? And Harvard actually did a great study on selfishness. It says that the longer you stay single, the higher the chances you are of having a divorce rate, or the higher the divorce rate goes for your future. So after the age of 26, you continue to increase your chances of divorce rate, because the idea is that the longer you're single, the longer you're just living for yourself. And it's much harder to kind of blend into that oneness and shared life with another individual when you get married. And so selfishness is a really dangerous thing, you know? So that's why it's important if you are single, have roommates, like constantly be having those things that kill off your selfishness, share things, like keep that style going. But yeah, I think men are failing in growing up in terms of commitment. We don't need freaking 4-year dating periods to propose to our girlfriends. Like, come on. Like, what are you really going to learn after 1 year that you don't know the first year? I mean, the thing is we have to realize, you know, when I got married, we dated for 9 months. I proposed. We got married at 1 year. And I thought to myself, like, I had all the information I needed to get married. Okay. And to be honest, if there was anything else that I didn't know, I knew it all. And the big takeaway is that after we were married, we had fights that if we weren't married, we would have broke up. But since we were married, we couldn't break up. We had to work through it. We had to grow through it. So this idea of just waiting for your wife to become perfect enough that you can marry her is ridiculous. Marry her. Figure it out. Marriage and love is a choice. You know, it's a choice. You have to wake up every day and go, you know what? I'm going to love this woman. And it sometimes doesn't feel great to my flesh. It sometimes doesn't feel good to give up the things that I want to do, but it's better for us. It creates a better version of ourselves.
When you had this family, how did it change your views of money?
I mean, for me, money has always been, the Bible talks more about money than anything else. And so I've always been very careful with money. That's why I write books called People Over Profit. And that's why I create companies like Sevenly that give millions of dollars away to charity. And so I'm constantly making sure that generosity is built in, not tacked onto my life. And the idea is, it's a dangerous thing. Money can be very addicting where you go, oh my gosh, if I just had $100,000 a year, I'd be fine. Well, then you make $100,000. If I just had $150,000 and then $200,000 and then $300,000, and eventually you just keep spending more when you make more. And so we made some boundaries in our home that we would never have any debt outside of a mortgage. And even that, we just really are trying to just constantly crush down on our mortgage, and we'll have that paid off really soon. And we don't take out loans for anything. My belief is that if you can't pay for it cash, it's not God's will, because God says that, hey, you're a slave to the lender. Debt's a horrible thing. It's a curse to your body. It's not something good. And if you can't afford it, you can't buy it. That's like simple math, guys. Like if you can't afford it, you don't buy it. And so we have to just be good and patient about things that we do. And if we want to, like right now, we're doing fencing on our property, right? It's $40,000 in fencing. When you own acreage, you understand how much fencing costs for your house, right? And so we're doing $40,000 in fencing right now. We had to save for that, right? That was the thing. We could have put it into our mortgage. No, we saved for it and we paid for it cash. And so it's definitely something that I'm doing that way, trying to teach my children. Debt is definitely not something that we do as a family. Secondly, for me, I think that once you make past $250,000 a year in the United States, you can go on the same vacations, you can stay at the same hotels, you can go to the same dinner spots, you can drive the same cars, you can live in most of the same, great areas as anybody else who makes $1 million a year or $5 million a year. At some point, you realize that, like, this is enough money. Like, I don't need to make more money. You guys heard me say earlier, I'm a capitalist. So I'm a big fan of the idea of just saying, hey, make more money, but figure out how you're going to invest it. Like, are you going to save it? Are you going to invest it to make more money? I would love to leave my kids an inheritance. I'd love to leave my grandkids an inheritance. And I'd love to give money away. And I love to support different causes and help people out in need. And so I don't want to be one of those bottom suckers in this life that needs to be constantly, sucking off of somebody else. I want to be the one that's blessing people and giving the people that are working hard that just need a little help. And I want to help the people that are stuck in injustices and that have been, sex trafficking and hunger and all these different causes. I want to be on the top helping people in that journey.
Yeah, there's a lot of studies that show that. Actually, you said 250 grand. That's quite a bit. For this study showed that after making just $100,000, that there was no change in that person's happiness in terms of what money could bring to that person. And that was for California and New York, but most states were actually in the $75,000 range.
Right.
But that was like a happiness study. And there's numerous studies. That was just one, but they all tend to be at about that low six-figure point where money does not play into your happiness levels. So I'm wondering, did the family change that for you? The 250K level, like previously, were you looking into getting a Ferrari and having a mansion?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I was never a big fan of, I've never been motivated by money. I'm one of these guys that I'm motivated by a vision. And I'm also motivated by influence. So I really spend a lot of time trying to come up with a vision that's just going to change something. And that people, I'm also a words of affirmation person. So that's just kind of one of my love languages. So when someone comes on Facebook and says, Dale, like that last post changed my perspective on this, like, thank you so much. That is like such a gift to me. So for me, those words of affirmation are really what I go for, of praise, right? So this is the idea of doing a good job. Job well done is kind of like my thing, right? So I'm constantly pushing to create great businesses that people talk about, and creating great visions and great movements that people love, and it changes people's lives. And the result of that, one of my favorite quotes is, focus less on making $1 million and focus more on helping 1 million people.
Right.
And when you do that, the money comes. Right? The money comes. And it's one of those things for me, is that every time I focus on just helping people and creating great businesses, I've never been short on money. And so it is definitely counterintuitive and difficult at times. But having kids, like my wife, we're on one car for the last year and a half. We just recently got a new truck. And the other car that we have is a $5,000 car we got on Craigslist. Like, we want our kids to see our actions as they grow older to go, hey, look, just because we can buy it doesn't mean we should buy it, right? And that's the idea of really making sure, what are we going to spend this money on? Because we're going to be held accountable at some point for the things that we did with our money. And I just want to make sure that I could stand before God and him go, good job, Dale. Good job on spending that money well.
Yeah, and with that vision, I know that when you're in that deep, dark time, when you're building a business or when you're just building something, when you're growing something, money has never been a motivator for me. Like if I do this, then that's on the other side. But the vision can really help you drive through those dark periods where there's the turning point of, am I going to keep going or am I going to fold here?
Okay, so when I say money's never been a motivator, money has to be somewhat of a motivator until you get to that target number we were talking about, like enough to pay your bills, right? Once you get past your bills, now it's all about, okay, what are we going to do to make this thing great? So sure, in the very beginning, those dark times, which I've been there so many times, and just I'm empathetic with that because I get it. It's in the very beginning, it's super difficult to go, oh my God, is this thing actually going to work? Because I'm just putting all my savings into this thing, and I hope that it's going to work. And so I get the fear, and fear's not adolescent, right? Fear is like a total adult thing as well. So the idea of just being in that moment of not knowing if this is going to work or not is a real thing. And it's a hard spot to be as a man, especially providing for a family. And so I want to just make sure that people don't take that I'm like, oh yeah, money's never a motivator. It totally is until a certain point, and then you'll switch into the vision thought.
Yeah, good point. And thanks for addressing that. You talk about, just coming back to this post here, you talk about how the adult world doesn't need more boys. We need men who will grow up, know up, and show up.
Yeah, it's the idea is that we got to have guys that want to learn and that want to read. And there's a quote by John Adams that says, the more one reads, the more one sees the need to read. And we need to make sure that we're constantly reading, that we're constantly growing, that we're constantly learning. And the idea of growing up is that, hey, there's things that we have to let go of the past. I mean, we live in a world where we just want to say, I can still be a kid and I can still play video games and do all these different things. You know what? Like, you can. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with video games, but we got to be stewards of our time. And, we want to make sure that we're doing the best we possibly can with that time. And so for me, I've just given myself boundaries on what I spend time with. And there's very few wasted hours that I do. And then showing up is just the idea for a lot of these guys that bail out, and a lot of these men that that really struggle with remaining. Their selfishness is so hard that they have to get a divorce. To be honest, man, I mean, there's not a lot of reasons on the planet, if any, to be honest, that could tear my wife and I apart. We've just made commitments, and a lot of these couples that, you have every right to divorce someone that's committed adultery and cheated on you. But, my wife and I feel like our marriage is just to this point where you go, hey, we could work through just about anything. Now, would we ever cheat on each other? Absolutely not. But would we ever believe the lie that that's not possible? Absolutely not either, right? So we got to be aware of those things, that they happen to the best of us. And so we're just constantly just making sure that we're mature, we're growing up, we're knowing up, and we're showing up. And that's just become a big part of our family.
Yeah. I'm getting this, like a clear sense of direction and order in your life.
Yeah. And it definitely has order. It's not chaotic, right? So the opposite of order is chaos. And I think that, again, every man's on his own pilgrimage to find those boundaries and really what's important. But for me, there's a lot of boundaries in the home, and I'm very disciplined. And discipline, as I've always defined, is doing things you don't necessarily like to achieve something you love. And so I'm constantly working on discipline. I understand this doesn't feel good. I don't want to do this right now. I don't want to get up at 6:30 in the morning right now. I was up in the middle of the night with my daughter, but I'm going to do it anyways because I'm disciplined. I'm doing the things that I don't necessarily like because I want to achieve the vision that I love. And that discipline, that mentality will change a man's life. And so those are the kind of things that I really focus on and just remember, and I don't compromise on.
Yeah. It's a simple thing to say, discipline. We've probably learned this in when we were 6 years old in martial arts class, like
right.
Discipline. We're like, okay, discipline. Sometimes we're searching for that new thing, that new idea, but forgetting some of those fundamental things that just are proven to work. I'm curious, like, can you walk us through like a day in the life of Dale Partridge, like from waking up to just even the little things you do for yourself, personal things you do for growth, things you do with the family, stuff like that, like just an average day? Yeah.
So average day, I'm waking up at 6:30. And my daughter, right now we have two kids, and one's an infant. So my wife is actually sleeping downstairs in another room because she's up a couple times in the middle of the night feeding. And so I'm upstairs sleeping in another room, and my daughter will wake up at around 7, and she'll come in and lay in bed with me. And what I do in the morning from about 6:30 to 7, I just kind of jump in, answer some emails, jump into some basic stuff on the internet, wake myself up, get on my brain going, go downstairs, and then around 7 o'clock and make kids breakfast and spend some time with my daughter, take the dogs out, do all that kind of, house stuff, turn on some music, dance with my kids, do some fun stuff down there. And then I'd go upstairs for a little bit, read the scriptures for about, between 10 and 30 minutes, spend some time, have a little bit of quiet time, typically top in the shower, and get out and start my day around 9:30. And I get on the computer, start jumping through my day, have some lunch, typically at a Mexican spot that I love. And during my day, I'm focusing on a to-do list. I use 3x5 cards. The night before, I write down like the top 4 or 5, maybe 8 things that I need to get done the next day, and I prioritize them by numbers. And so I'm just constantly crushing out those certain things throughout the day. And it's really hard because, I work from home. I got kids crying. Sometimes mom needs help. Sometimes I got distractions because I got people building stuff on my property and they need me to go look at something outside, and phone calls come in. And I have those realities that you all have too. And I try to really just be as productive as possible. I typically done by 4. And then I kind of go downstairs and hang out and spend some more time with my wife. And we go out to dinner or make dinner at home, try to get back, watch sunset together as a family. And kids are in bed at 9. We don't do the early kid thing. We do 9:30. And then Veronica and I have that 9:30 to 11 or 11:30 time together. I write my list out for the next day and then pass out I'm usually like in bed at 11 and asleep for sure before midnight. And so that's kind of like my goal. If I can get 7 hours of sleep, I'm like a rock star. If I get under 7 hours, I can do it for a few days, but then I need to switch it up. But the focus really is just, it's consistent 7 days a week. So I don't change that up on the weekends.
Yeah. So I was going to ask, do you take weekends off? It sounds like you just keep going. Every day's the same. I don't work on Sundays ever. I've really made a decision to do that. I mean, it's funny. For many years I did. And I just look back and I'm like, one of the 10 commandments is to not work on Sunday. Like, it's to take a day of rest, to take a Sabbath. And I'm like, what the heck? How did I miss that? Right. So I just realized that, like,
come on, like I got to focus on there's a value to that. And every time I work 7 days a week, I'm an idiot. I mean, I'm like the most unproductive version of myself when I'm working 7 days a week. So I just made a vow that, hey, I just don't work on Sundays at all. And Saturdays, I will sometimes work. Maybe in seasons, I might do it every week for 12 weeks straight. And then I won't do it for 6 months. And so it just depends on if I'm launching a new site or writing a new book and I need that extra time. But I try not to ever work more than 40 hours a week. I mean, the reason I work for myself is not so I can work more. I want to work less, right? So I try to also take July or August completely off.
Wow.
And just don't do any work at all. Schedule out all my stuff and just focus that I can just take 2 months off and be a dad and go kayaking and go on a camping trip and not have to worry about anything. And I mean, that's the core of why we create businesses, right? Is so that we can have that freedom over our lives. And so, yeah, definitely want to focus on creating my own schedule. And I guess the art of that is working for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, you want to enjoy. I like that you take the month or two off over the summer. You get a chance to enjoy the fruits of your labor, all the hard work that you did, and that's why you got into this whole thing, right?
Yeah, it's like getting to the top of the mountain and not taking a minute to look at it. So look at the view, you know? So,
yeah, I think so many of us, like, we get into entrepreneurship, like we think of like, oh, the beach, laptop lifestyle, but how many of us actually end up doing that?
Oh, dude, I look at, it's so funny. I see these posts on, while you're sleeping, I'm hustling. While you're sleeping, I'm grinding. I'm like, you're an idiot, you know? Like, I'm like, while you're grinding, I'm on vacation with my family. I had a guy, I remember he posted online bragging about how many hours he worked. And I'm like, you work for yourself. Like, you're embarrassing all the other entrepreneurs out there. Like, you don't brag about how many hours you work. The opposite is true. You want to brag about how many hours you didn't work. So all the guys out there that are thinking they're super awesome for working 80-hour weeks, you're the biggest total opposite loser entrepreneur out there. Like, we want to be entrepreneurs that are focusing on creating 10 hours a week, right? If you could make $1 million a year on 10 hours a week, I want to hang out with you because I want you to tell me what you're doing, right? That's what we should be doing as entrepreneurs, not trying to figure out how we can work 80 hours a week. Go get 2 full-time jobs if you want to work 80 hours a week. So I definitely get passionate about that kind of stuff and helping people re-understand what it means to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And, not discounting, though, that in the beginning, you might have to do those.
Oh, yeah. Again, I always...
just to be clear.
Yeah, I always do this. I always talk about like my present nature.
Right.
But yeah, trust me, guys, I know there are seasons. Trust me, like I'm in a season right now where I'm working probably 50 hours a week right now just because I'm right about to launch my website. But once the website's done, it's going to go back to normal. Because we got to remember, it's okay to be busy for a season, right? A season ends though. Okay. It's not cool to be busy forever, right? Remember, we can't be good at our jobs if our job is all we do. Right. So we have to remember that. It's that, like, you can't just say, I'm going to constantly work. You have to stop at some point. Take a break, rejuvenate. Otherwise, you're going to hit burnout. I promise you, I've done it 3 or 4 times in my life. You're going to start having anxiety attacks. You're going to start having insomnia. You're going to start having depression. You're going to start getting fat. You're going to start losing your muscle. You're going to start dropping your relationships. And it's all going to be because you can't have the discipline to slow down. And so that's the focus that I've learned from pain over the last few years.
Yeah, that's a strong message. That's a very strong message for what is going on and just all over. And even I catch myself sometime in that. I'm thinking back in 2015 where I was like the warrior season was just the warrior year. And it still has its toll on me today. And we're here in close to like mid-April or so.
Right.
And not taking those breaks. Like, we feel like if we take a break, we're slowing down. But I find that when I do slow down and give myself some me time, when I do things that are just chilling, like laying on the patio couch and reading a book and just nothing, I'm more creative. I actually have more to deliver when I come back and I'm ready to go.
Yeah, and people feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, because of this crappy entrepreneur culture that's out there, feel shameful when they sit and do nothing, and they feel guilty.
Yeah,
like they don't deserve it. And they like self-sabotage themselves. And
there's always something more that they could be doing.
Yeah, the internet doesn't end. I mean, so just we got to know that. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't have an end. So yeah, focusing on that ability to go, you know what, I'm going to just take a week off and I'm going to have a staycation at my house and I'm not going to get on my phone and I'm going to like go to restaurants for like every single meal of my day. And I'm going to totally like just take, just do that. I mean, come on, as long as you can pay your bills, do that.
Yeah. Powerful message. Thank you for bringing this to the table here. And Dale, let's dive now into the knowledge round. Just going to ask you a few rapid fire questions here. So Dale, you ready for the knowledge round?
I'm in.
If you're tired of living the mundane day-to-day and just the daily grind and want to experience more joy and fulfillment in your life, then check out my live weekly talks and open Q&A with the community where I share my biggest insights on becoming the most powerful version of yourself to rise above mediocrity and create the life you desire. Register for the next upcoming event at kfmlive.com. Again, that's kfmlive.com. And hurry up before all the spots are taken. Hope to see you there. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime. Dale, first question here. What advice would you give to someone who's feeling really lost and unsure of their purpose?
Oh, man. You're hitting me with hard questions that, like, I'm the kind of guy that wants to answer these things very deeply.
Let's go. Let's go.
Okay, ask it to me one more time.
What advice would you give to someone who's feeling lost, lacking a sense of direction, and is feeling unsure of their purpose?
Okay, getting organized is probably the first step I always do when I feel lost. When I feel confused, lost, disorganized, my life feels chaotic, and it's typically because my life's not organized. So I start cleaning, literally, physically, and also mentally. So for me, I'm a big fan of just saying, hey, spend some time organizing your life. I don't care if it's your email, your desktop, your thoughts, your ideas, priorities, your bills, whatever it is, but you cannot think clearly until you do that. Secondly, I would say set some intentional time aside to have safe, permission-based people who know you and love you to sit around for 4 hours and talk about your purpose, talk about your gifting, because I don't think we get to tell the world what our calling is. I don't think we get to tell the world what our gifting is. I think other people get to tell it to us. When someone walks up to us and goes, dude, you are an entrepreneur. Like, dude, you are a marketer. Like, man, you're like one of the best encouragers I've ever seen. Dude, you're so witty. I can't, like, you're like a borderline comedian, man. Oh my gosh. Like, I love your integrity. You're so honest. Dude, you have a way of leading with people that makes people feel comfortable. Like, you need those voices in your head from other people. That's how you find your purpose.
Yeah, I like that. And what would you say was holding you back from becoming the man you are now today?
To be honest, I mean, I just think time. I think time, and I think for me, I was raised not as a Christian. I was raised in a pretty mediocre family, and I wish I had. My dad's great, and I love my dad, but I wish I had better parenting. That would have been probably the better. That would have been the only thing that might have sped up my growth. Is just better parenting, and that's why I really look at being a great dad. Is because we can change the trajectory of our kids' future. As parents, but time. I mean, I think that's the only thing is that the only thing that can really change us is time. We need that time. It's so hard. I just couldn't embrace some of these ideas 5 years ago. So like, if you're listening to this podcast right now, you're thinking, holy crap, this guy's a crazy man. It's okay. In a few years, you might come around to what I'm thinking. You might not. And I'm not saying that I have the ultimate truths here. I'm just saying that it's a process, and I'm learning to embrace other men's journeys and pilgrimages on that journey. Because I go, hey, you know what? You're on year 2, you're on year 8, you're on year 40, you know? So yeah, I think just being patient, man. Personal growth is really hard. And sometimes there's no way to get around years.
Yeah. Yeah, good. And what would you say are 2 or 3 of your most influential books that you've read, and why?
Okay, 2 or 3 of my most influential books. Okay, John Adams, for sure, is one of them. I don't know if you've read the book John Adams. It's by David McCullough.
Yeah.
And, dude, John Adams is such a badass. I mean, he is so awesome. I just love that guy. And ultimately, it's the biography and history of the inventing of America. And talk about the most successful organization in the history of the world, right? It's the United States. Not saying that it's the most successful right now, but it was at one point, right? So the invention of this is just incredible in terms of just watching how it occurred. And the quotes and the writing style are just poetic and colorful, and they make you like, I've cried a few times reading this book. So it's just an incredibly powerful leadership book. I'm like underlining it as if I'm like reading the Bible or something. I'm like highlighting it and underlining it, like using notes, writing blogs about it. I mean, it is so good. It's long, but it's good. And then in terms of design, if you guys know me, I'm a designer by trade. I believe that design's more important than people think it is. One of my favorite books is The Brand Gap, and it's how to bridge the distance between business strategy and design. And so a lot of my understanding and knowledge of branding, which I've made probably millions of dollars with, is based off this book. So it's a short book. It's really beautiful. It's easy to read. You can read it in a couple days. And man, I'm trying to think of the next couple books. I have so many. I mean, Rework's great. Made to Stick's great. Inside Apple. I guess the other last book I'll say is Good to Great. I'm sure probably people have mentioned this before, but Good to Great is probably the best business book in my opinion in terms of just understanding business as a whole. It was the first business book I ever read when I started my first company. And it's just Jim Collins, who wrote that, great by choice, Built to Last. He was my Harvard. And I just read those 3 books, which is a heck of a lot cheaper than Harvard. And those philosophies and principles have really guided me to the businesses that I've created.
Yeah, I like that. Really good books. Thanks for the, I'm going to have to add some of those to the wish list right after this. And this next question is more of a scenario, Dale. So imagine you had 60 seconds with 20-year-old Dale. If you can envision what he's up to, what he's doing in his life, what would you tell him to do? And what would you tell him not to do?
I tell him to go to church. That'd be one thing, right? Just to speed up that process. I probably tell him to stop lying. I think that lying was something that I struggled with for a long time. It wasn't until a man came up to me and he says, well, Dale, you call yourself a Christian. And it says that liars don't inherit the kingdom of heaven. And it says right before that, says, do not be deceived. And not to say that you can't lie, repent and God's grace covers you and you go to heaven. I mean, but I'm saying the idea is that God doesn't like liars. Like that's not a good quality to have. And as well as lying's horrible, right? And I wasn't like the straight liar. I was the like the exaggerator, the white liar, the half truth liar, And I was a salesman, so I'd spin things a little bit differently and deceive people, manipulate people in certain ways. And I mean, my parents used to call me like, you're going to be a lawyer when I was like 8, right? So I had this skill set even as a kid. And I would tell myself just to stop it immediately because we choose to lie. We don't think that like lying happens to us. Like we choose it. Every time we want to escape it, like it's like some sort of habit. We call it a habit. No, it's a habit. No. Every time you do it, you chose to do it. And you got to own those results. And so I just made the decision to say, I'm just not going to lie anymore. And it's hard because there's times where I want to lie because it'd be easier to get out or tell a half truth or exaggerate about something. But I just don't do that anymore. And it's been fruitful for my marriage and for my business relationships for sure.
Yeah, really good. And even if you have to summarize some of your main points here, Dale, what would you say is your philosophy on life and success?
We just want to focus that we're not forgetting anything. Like we don't want to forget anything. And so it makes me weep when I see men and women in their 40s and 50s they missed the marriage, they missed the children in the pursuit of their own dreams that they realize are pretty empty. Once you take enough vacations and you go enough places, you realize that like, I'm kind of tired of this. There's something about the idea of really deep, long-term committed love that's different than anything else on the planet. And when you have that family and you have that commitment and you have that life that you built, I just think that it's just way more important to have that than it is to have a successful company. And so I just tell people, figure out how to have it all. My philosophy is have it all. The business that you want, family you need, and the life that you love. It takes all of that to really enjoy life.
Yeah, just letting this sink in. This is really good, Dale. You're hitting home some big topics that I know is resonating with my audience and even myself here right now.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that it's, sometimes a lot of people don't talk about this stuff. I don't know why, especially a lot of millennials, So I'm probably the oldest of the millennial generation. I think it goes up to 32. And it's definitely something that needs to be talked about more. And I feel like sometimes we all feel it in our spirits and we all feel it in our emotions. And remember, this isn't rehearsal, right? Like this is your life right now. Like you're not going to get a chance to do this again. Like 10 years from now, you're going to be older, So yeah, let's just not make the mistake that we're going to get to repeat this, because we're not.
Yeah, I was just actually writing something about that. Like, we're never going to experience this date ever again. Like, the date, this month, this day, this year, never again will ever occur, not just for you, but in the world. And it's not your practice life.
Yeah, I mean, think about it this way. It's like I thought about this pretty early. I was like, I want to have kids at a certain age because, like, remember, like, none of this stuff in my life is by accident. It is totally planned. Like, if you're not planning, you're just hoping all this stuff's going to happen, like, you're not smart, okay? Failing to plan is planning to fail, right? So we want to focus on a plan. So, like, hey, when do you want to be married? And who is that woman? Okay, let's identify this woman very clearly. Okay, now we've identified this woman very clearly. Who does that woman want to marry? Then we've identified that man. Okay, become that man. Okay, boom. Next step. When would I want to be a dad? Well, let's think about like other things. Like, when would you want to be a grandfather? And you go, okay, well, I don't want to be like a 70-year-old grandfather when my first grandkid's born. Like, I want to take him to Disneyland. I want to have those experiences. Well, that means that I should probably have kids by the time I'm like 30 something, right? So we take these things that we think should be very organic and make them not as organic, and people hate that. But I don't know, man. I've done that and I love my life. And so I think this taking a little bit more of a practical, logical approach, obviously knowing that there has to be fluidity in it, meaning that we can't control, we're going to get married on this day and we're going to have children now, but coming up with that vision in your head and just talking about it. And a lot of people talk about life plans and stuff. I mean, I think it's a good practice to start thinking about those things immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. I like how you're making some of these, what is complex, you're making it seem very simple for all of us here, and making it seem practical, which is, I think, how a lot of our minds work. Just we want practical, simple, logical steps that make more sense.
Amen.
Yeah. So this has been really good. Thank you for sharing all of this insight and bringing this conversation here to myself and the audience. I'm curious though, what's exciting you today? Like, what are you excited for in this new year?
We're focusing on building Startup Camp. For me, it's a really good outlet to help other people start businesses that give them more time to spend doing the things they like with the people they love. And so, we're revamping the curriculum, making it even stronger. We have about 700 students enrolled in Startup Camp currently, and working on a brand new website that we're about to launch out in a couple days here. Working on some new products, some new ebooks, and writing a new book. So I'm going to start writing Startup Camp the book, and that's going to happen here very soon. So a lot of big things, and trying to get them all done before July. Also having an event called the Startup Camp Summit in June 29th and 30th, and just 100 entrepreneurs on a private 80-acre ranch. And so I'm just doing a lot of fun stuff right now that I am really excited about. And I have an infant, right? So I have this beautiful baby boy who's 7 weeks old right now, and so I get a chance to kind of fall in love with another person, and that's a really great thing. And my daughter is 2.5, and she's just like coming into her personality, and she's talking in sentences, and every day's joy. And after my wife's been pregnant for a long time, and now getting out of the kind of really early infant phase, I get my wife back, so we're starting to just have a normal life again, and getting to have some time together. And so, yeah, I feel like life's been getting a little bit better, and going into the summer, and so just kind of excited about just enjoying the fruits of the labor.
Dale, love what's going on in your life. It's just, even just hearing what's going on, where you're going, it's like the journey continues. It's like, look what I've done, but the journey continues. Like, it gets better. And it's really cool to see that and put those pieces together. Dale, thanks again for being on the show. This has been a very powerful episode, and I think worth a second listen for a lot of the audience.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and millions of downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we're just getting started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a helpful review in iTunes, because it really helps the podcast grow so we can impact even more men in the world who need this. Guys, this is all about living with purpose, where every day you only do things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. And always remember, love the life you have while creating the life of your dreams. Go to kfmfree.com to get a surprise bonus I've made for my listeners. Again, that's kfmfree.com for something that's changed my life, and I'm offering it to you for free. Also, check out my Amazon best-selling books that I've written for you to help you crush life at kfmfree.com. kfmauthor.com. Again, that's kfmauthor.com to see all the books I've created to help you break through in life. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, founder of knowledgeformen.com, and I'll see you in the next episode.